Welcome to Up or Not, and today we're doing a little champion analysis and review on yours truly, Shen. Wait a second, that's not the Shen rework. Here's Shen, off the PvE server. We're going to be comparing this Shen versus the old Shen, since they're the same champion. And prior to my old video, the same formula will be in this video as well, so pros and cons, rating the early game, mid game, and late game, and then overall rating the power level of the new Shen, his funness level, and predicting the win rates when he's going to be released of all ranks and Diamond Plus. So hopefully this video will give you some insight on how I feel about him and what might happen when he is released to the live servers. Also, this will be the first iteration of Shen, so all of my opinions are based off what he was like when he was released the first time on the PvE server. So that's all the numbers you will see in the skills right here. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get started. Alright, so when we talk about the pros about the new Shen, as there's a lot of things I do like about him and feel that are really great about him. The first statement I want to make is he's probably going to be a jungler. The reason I say this is because his clears are super awesome. Like, let's look at this skill again. I have percent health damage, plus I have bonus damage to monsters. And like every champion that is released on the PvE with a maximum percent health skill, they always forget to put a cap on damage towards monsters. So you're doing about 9 to 15% maximum health damage to monsters, plus 330 if you're level 9. So hey, you'll see the clears being really good once you do hit that level 9, and even if you're level 5, you'll start to see some results. Yeah, sure, you don't get the enhanced damage or 50% more attack speed, but hey, you get the bonus damage to monsters. That's pretty good. I also think he's probably going to be a Devour jungler as a main core build, because the thing is, he might not always get his 50% attack speed bonus coming from his Q, as he might miss hitting the champion, so it's going to be very hard to get those 3 autos off on the enemy, but if he has a Devour, it can be, pretty consistent. And then the 50% coming from his Q is just a bonus, plus stated in his Q will give him a lot of burst. The next point I'm going to make is you get a 2-second slow for every 5 seconds with your Q. So the slow only works if you're fleeing from Shen. For a Shen that's laning, it can be useful if he's going in for the kill, but for trading, not too much help there. But for jungle Shen, you use your Shadow Dash on someone, they're taunted for 1.5 seconds, then you activate Q, then they got a 2-second slow on them while they're trying to run away. And usually they will because it's a 3v2 or 2v1. So potentially in ganks, you got a 3.5 second CC combo in ganks. And since it's on a low cooldown, if you have like blue buff or 20% CDR for whatever reason, hey, that's 4 seconds, so you can reactivate it as long as you're in front of them. Oh yeah, and of course you gotta hit them with the Spirit Blade too. Next up, he has a 1.75 second dodge for his whole team. I think this is kind of OP, but I'm not entirely sure. Like, the reason it's really good is because his old W was very useless. Like, you'd never touch that button unless you were in the laning phase, but now he's got something very useful for team fights and top lane and, jungle. This skill is very good for appealing for your teammates, can give you a lot of counterplay, like Twist of Fate's gold card won't affect you since you dodged it, so I can see a lot of power being in this skill when used for counterplays and just general usage. And with 40% CDR, it can be up more often than you think. A 40% CDR with his kit is generally good because getting energy with his new kit is not that hard. All you have to do is auto people with your Q or dash into people. Old Shen didn't really have a problem with this because he'd only use 2 skills, which would be his Q and E. So yeah, dashing and striking people along with his W, giving him dodge to his whole team, pretty good. The thing is, I never really felt that I was losing energy when I was playing him. Like, as long as I was playing aggressive and hitting my 3 Qs onto people, I kind of felt like I was gaining more energy than I was using. But of course, if you're on the defensive, like say you're hugging a tower in lane, and you can't really auto anything, then energy becomes a little problem. Now the next thing I want to talk about is his damage output. His damage output is a lot. Like 3 auto attacks with his Q, you can do 21% maximum health damage to someone, and you also gain 50% attack speed. Along with that, his E now scales with bonus health to do more damage, so as long as you're building tanky, you're still going to be doing a lot of damage. And your Q is constantly up, like it's on a 5-second cooldown and you need to do 3 auto attacks. And by then, when you finish your 3 auto attacks, your Q is going to be up. So compared to the old Shen, he had a little burst with his key strike, but now you have a lot more sustained damage. And along with his E scaling with bonus health, his shield actually scales with bonus health too. And one thing I didn't notice until making this video was that the cooldown of his shield could potentially be 2.5 seconds every time he uses a skill. Like previously, I thought it was, if you hit someone with an ability, you get 5 seconds less on it. But apparently it scales way better in the game, so potential perma shield. They're probably going to reduce his number before he goes on live. I think. Hopefully? I don't know, they're really bad at balancing champions when they release them on live servers. Usually champions are either OP or underpowered. And one of the biggest pros about Shen is if you're trying to flee from, it is impossible. Like the Q, 2 seconds slow, plus his dash. If he's got 40% CDR, there's no way you're going to get away from him. So his cleanup ability in teamfights is really strong with that new slow coming from his Q. Especially if he's in the enemy's back line, it's impossible. You probably have an idea of what I'm going to say at the end about, how I feel about Shen, but there are a few cons about this new Shen that they have not included from the old Shen. So the biggest point I have to make is he has no more sustain. No more. Maybe you have to buy potions, maybe you have to buy Adorn Shield, maybe you have to poke the enemy with your auto attacks with that new mastery. But there's no more Vorpal Blades. And that could potentially be a big nerf because it has really good synergy with that Runic Shield mastery. And on to the next con, there's no more range poke. This is also one of the reasons why I believe he's going to be a jungler. Let's say you're having a bad time in lane. The only thing you got is your shield to protect you from any kind of harassment enemy, and of course your W, but that is on a long cooldown, like 18 seconds. So what can you do to CS? Nothing. You just sit back until the minions start pushing to your tower so you can easily CS. So when Shen is behind, it's kind of harder for him to play against enemies. And next up, they increase the cooldown of his E on every rank by 2 seconds, so he won't be smashing and dashing everyone as often as before. Although I do feel like it is a good trade-off to get that extra damage coming from bonus health for his E. And then the next nerf coming to his E is there's actually no more reduced damage when he taunts someone. This doesn't matter for the mid game and late game, if you have armor, but for the laning phase where each auto attack does count, well, dashing to your enemy won't do as much as it did before. And now we're going to be doing ratings for his early game, mid game, and late game, and comparing it with the old Shen. So early game as a jungler, 8.0 out of 10. So in the first few levels, your clears are, mediocre. And once you get a few points into your Q, you start seeing clears that are, well, really good. And his ganks have improved because he does now have a slow from his Q. And also a little bit more damage. As a top laner, he did lose his sustain, he did lose his range harass, and now he's all melee and no brain. You'd think he'd be pretty good, but until he gets some levels or items, I'd feel maybe a little bit below average. There's also not a lot of base damage when you level your Q. Like, you go to 9% to 15% maximum health damage, or if it's enhanced, 15 to 21%. Yeah, the cooldown does go down whenever you level it up, but getting the 3 autos onto the enemy is much harder than you would think. So ideally, I don't think it's too good unless you're playing super aggressive onto an enemy, but I feel like most enemies do have a better laning phase than this new Shen. Now, talking about the old Shen's early game, he was pretty shitty in the jungle. As a top laner, he was pretty decent, had sustain and range harass. And now his mid game is really impressive. So the two Shens will probably go split pushing again since they have their ultimate, but the biggest change of this new rework Shen is he does more damage than before. He also brings a very useful skill when he comes in with his W, giving dodge to his friends, and also his shield will shield him for more damage as it does scale with his bonus health now. And he also has a 2-second slow to chase off fleeing enemies. And now he has % health damage so he can do damage to tanks, and also squishies. 21% health damage, that's a lot of damage you're going to be outputting. And it is constantly up, so a lot of sustained damage. Now old Shen, he gets a 6 out of 10. I don't know how much hidden power the Q sustain actually had when his friends attacked the enemy he used the Q on, but I don't think it was too much in team fights. His W is useless and, his passive didn't do as much damage as this new Q auto enhancer. But his E is on a shorter cooldown, so he can be taunting people more, and he would reduce the damage by 50%, but I don't think that's too much of a big deal. Now, next up is going to be late game Shen. This is the point where he probably has 5 points into his W. The dodge is on a 12-second cooldown, but with, some CDR, it's going to be around 7 seconds, so AoE dodge for everyone every 7 seconds. And the next biggest point I want to make is % maximum health damage scales so well into the late game, since everyone is increasing their health by leveling up or just items. That means Shen gets to do more damage. Ooh, Shen likes more damage. He also gets a shield every 2.5 seconds if he's hitting people with his abilities, which is most likely going to happen, so he's overall more tanky. Oh yeah, and the shield scales with bonus health, so probably going to exceed 220 health, which is more than his old shield. Now old Shen late game, it's a 6.0 out of 10. It feels the same relatively to his mid game. There's also definitely better tanks than him at the late game stage. So late game about tanks, it's all about peeling for his AD carry, which he has with his ultimate, doing maximum % health damage, and having CC. This Shen doesn't have maximum % health damage, so relatively he's just a meat shield. Now the power level of this new Shen is an 8.0, personally coming from me, but usually when I say this, they're not as strong as I think when they're released in the live servers, so let's lower that to a 7.0. As for the win rate, it'll probably be 51% in all ranks, and then in Diamond might be 52%. If everyone starts playing him in the jungle, it'll be 53%. In the top lane, maybe 50%, maybe more. Fun level for Shen is a 7 out of 10. I like the stupid mini game where you can hit champions with your abilities so you can get more shields. And I also like, enhanced auto attacks. Especially going like Devour, Titanic Hydra Shen, you do so much burst damage. And it was just an interesting new way to play Shen. So yeah, he's pretty fun, plus I'm also biased to new things and I usually think they're always fun. But again, this is all speculation, and when he is released on the live servers, I'll definitely putting a little annotation right here to give you all the statistics of what actually happened. So be sure to check back in this video to see what the win rates are, and to actually see if I was a prophet or I'm just an idiot. But yeah, if you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button as it does help my channel a lot. And if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. And again, I am Panther Dragon, and I'll see you guys next time.
You still believe in where we're from. Man's right flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power. Spirit, use your wings. Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
Doesn't... Fuck you.